In this video, I discuss my strategy of going all in into altcoins and how I'm handling it during the current crypto crash. I'm discussing everything surrounding the current crypto crash, why Bitcoin and altcoins are falling this much, and at the end of the video, I'm diving into my strategy for the upcoming months, as I would like to share everything of my journey for you so your journey becomes more easier. Let's get started. So, the markets are completely puking to the max. We've seen these prices for some altcoins, we've never seen them before. Like for instance, Arbitrum and Optimism, or at least Arbitrum, is hitting cycle lows where Bitcoin is reaching to numbers that we've not been seeing since October last year, as Bitcoin has been puking towards 54k and even lower. Through which this drop is not being pushed by macroeconomic factors, because when we look at the macroeconomic factors, we can see that, for instance, the dollar is currently continuing its fall. So there is not a strong dollar pushing the Bitcoin price down. As a matter of fact, the dollar has continued to fall, through which you usually would expect Bitcoin to do really well, as currently gold has been breaking out upwards due to the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty globally. The second thing is that on top of the dollar, you've got the yields on treasury or government bonds, which is a very important factor for risk on and risk off assets. And in that aspect, the last time that Bitcoin has been reaching 58k, the yields were way higher. At this point, the yields are continuing to fall, and the yields have been dropping substantially as economic data becomes worse and worse. We can see that there is uncertainty surrounding the presidential election on the Democratic side. Right wing is winning in Europe, through which the rates and the expectations for the rate cuts have changed from the market perspectives, through which the rates have continued to fall. So on the 1st of May, Bitcoin reached 58k, and during that period the rates peaked. Now the rates are substantially lower than that moment, and Bitcoin is currently priced lower, in which we can also see that stocks have continued its rally while Bitcoin is doing the opposite. So in that aspect, it's crypto intrinsic, and some arguments for that are very clear. We've got two arguments. First one is Germany is currently selling its Bitcoin from its treasury. They had a position of 3.5 billion that started to decrease. Currently it's around 2.3 billion, and that cascaded or started its actual fall. We've seen multiple transfers happening towards exchanges, but this news item is actually getting a little bit over exaggerated, because it was coming from exchanges already, and markets, when they are in fear, they are looking for actual reasons to say that the markets need to continue to fall, and that is potentially the case with this actual event taking place. The second thing is Mt. Gox. After 10 years of Mt. Gox falling apart, the repayment started to happen on the 5th of July. Initially, the first thing what we saw was a test transfer on the 4th of July. Then the news started to roll out and the market started to puke, and then we see the actual fact that they have transferred approximately 30 to 40% of the total amount of Bitcoin that they were holding towards exchanges, and an official letter that they were going to be starting its repayments, which we were expecting to see happening in July, and they start the repayments on the 5th of July, at least partially, towards the creditors that were waiting for their Bitcoins to be released. Also Bitcoin Cash, by the way. So that news is out. It's happening. It's the biggest event that we have, through which you can actually say, alright, everything is getting cleared up, because there are so many bullish arguments to be expected in the next 6 months, and there is a very likely case that instead of the 4-year cycle, we might be anticipating a longer cycle as it becomes an institutional cycle. But if this is landed, and the worst is currently getting into the markets due to the fact that it's a shock event, it's a black swan type-ish event, it's news-driven, event-driven, and event-driven is always a sort of V-shape or extreme panic moment where we can look at the data, we can see that this capitulation is comparable to the capitulation that we saw in the FTX collapse. So the amount of liquidations taking place is identical. And due to the fact that this is identical, we know what we're currently facing, which is capitulation. And that is just the final needles before we are going to have the Ethereum ETF, and before there is likely more going to be happening with XRP and everything surrounding the regulations, that I think these are the final big heavy corrections taking place, and then we should be good to go. Now, you know that I've been going all in into altcoins. At the last part of this video, I'll discuss my strategy, and yes, I've been wrong with my strategy. I've been too early with my strategy. I've been doing that multiple times in the cycles. You can't really predict the bottom. People say that they can predict the bottom. It's not about that. It's about having allocations and conviction. So I swapped from Bitcoin to altcoins, going all into altcoins to make more Bitcoin. And by doing that, I do not care that much about my USD valuations because I don't need my positions and I want to make more Bitcoin. And that is a crucial aspect. So during these crashes, I sincerely start to look at the valuations of the altcoins compared to Bitcoin instead of looking at them in USD valuations. Because if you're looking at the USD valuations, you are getting completely hammered. My portfolio USD value is destroyed. And yes, I could have been better off by selling everything, going to cash and then swapping it towards altcoins right now. True, that is always the case. Didn't happen. I stayed into the markets, so I took a hit, but the hit is relatively, you can take it, because if you go towards a few of these altcoins or portfolio allocations, for instance, Ethereum is currently up on average since I've been buying it. In terms of ETH Bitcoin, the lowest point is 0.045. It's currently at 0.052 or 3, and I've been averaging it around 0.05, which means that I'm slightly up on that position. While if I'm looking at the USD valuation, I'm down astronomically on that position. So it's just a matter of reference. And if you look at the bigger scope, which is that I think that Bitcoin is the hardest money out there, that I want to keep adding my Bitcoin, as I think that the inflation and everything happening in the world is going to go through the roof. So I want to keep stacking my Bitcoin and potentially gold at some point to make sure that I can keep my purchasing power. I sincerely do not care about short-term price fluctuations due to the USD valuation. So if we go look at Chainlink, for instance, Chainlink is currently at the cycle low again, which means that the allocations that I've been buying into it, I'm down approximately 15% on that position against Bitcoin. If we are looking at newer coins like Wormhole and stuff, yes, I'm down 50% on that position. So balancing it out, as for instance Ethereum is larger than Chainlink and larger than Wormhole in my portfolio, it's not that heavy. I'm currently down approximately 20%, and I've been shooting this video a few days before it went live, so it can be fluctuating. But overall, you can technically say that you need to look at your own reference point. If your reference point is US dollar, of course, it's a very heavy, painful period. And if I go back to where I was in the previous cycles, I did the same in 2020. And here's a chart of Matic against USDT. I went down 50% during the months after I've been going all in into altcoins with a way smaller portfolio during that period as well. I got hammered. If we look at Veracity against USDT, my big small gainer during that period, I got hammered because it lost even more. So I've been seeing this rodeo multiple times before. And that moment was even worse because USD dropped, but when we look at the BTC pair, we saw that Matic dropped 70% during that period before reversing up. So in this cycle, I make the decision around the cycle lows for most of the coins, and I'm actually able to take this loss in USD valuation, but my loss in BTC pair is relatively small. One slight bounce up, and Bitcoin is at 60k, and my BTC valuation is going to be higher due to the fact that the altcoins are just outperforming, are likely going to outperform, as the pain is over. As what other topic is there in the markets right now that's going to push the prices even further down? The markets are expecting to see a further decrease due to the repayments, but I think that with these type of events, the actual news is usually the trigger for the drop, and then the markets reverse. And when it comes to the altcoins, what you want to see is that the BTC pairs reverse back up. And when they do, that's the trigger where we start to switch. So then you need to look at the Bitcoin dominance. So coming to a conclusion in my strategy is that these periods are super harsh, super painful. I don't like them. It's stressful. It's the same rodeo you always have with crypto. And you can say, hey, he's lucky. He has been getting all the followers and everything and such. No, I've got a lot of responsibilities. I'm doing a lot of work for my companies, for our clients, for our partners. Everything that we do, we build and continue to go forward. Stepping out here on social media, sharing my strategy, receiving all the comments from you guys. It's not easy at all times. And this is a period where it's not easy because I have conviction and I'm getting blamed for it, which is a reference. If it starts to turn around, it's going to be great. But that's how it works. I've decided this thesis and I stick to it. Mt. Gox repayments is not a fundamental change to anything in the markets that I'm changing my strategy. The only thing is that it's a short-term trigger for additional liquidity in the markets where it potentially one hand holding Bitcoin is going to move to another one. What price? We don't know. Could be 45k, could be 50k, could have seen the bottom already. We don't know. What we want to see is what the BTC valuations of the altcoins are going to do. And I'm convinced that given that the Ethereum ETF and all the other topics surrounding crypto in the next 6 months, including the bottoming procedure that we usually have in June, July, that is going to happen again. So fundamentally, nothing changed, but you need to pick the right altcoins to go forward with. And I've chosen relatively new coins in my portfolio. I said that earlier. I swapped older ones for newer ones, making sure that I get a higher return. That is also the risk of having a higher fall in your portfolio as they are super volatile. I understand. I'm going to stick with that. I don't change anything at all. If I was having liquidity at this point, I would be buying during these periods. I would advise you to do that as well. So I'm not going to be changing anything. These times are capitulation events. You need to watch the BTC valuation, and it's a time for buying opportunity and sitting on your hands. That is my strategy. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you again on a new update the coming week.